Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this specialized seminar on IRS Modernized e-file MEF system development. I want to start by addressing why we all are here. Over the past semester, our faculty has received a surge of inquiries from students, not just asking what e-filing is, but asking for a deep, technical, and actionable guide on how to build it. You asked how to move beyond the theory and actually develop, test, and transmit secure tax data to the IRS. Particularly, the questions were related to the roadmap, how to develop applications which interact with IRS MeF Tax Return system, understanding the differences between IFA and IFA stands for Internet Filing Application and A2A application to application based systems, and how to implement them. There were some questions also related to building this software using modern frameworks in .NET and .java, and then some students also asked about mastering the rigorous ATS system, the assurance testing system environment. So this seminar is answer to those requests. So here is the overview. We have structured this session to cover the end-to-end development life cycle of a tax return, submission, composition, and transmission application. So we will start with introduction to MEF system, how to apply for e-file and how to get approved. We will also focus on the MEF architecture, focusing on XML schema requirements, business rules, and security protocols required to protect taxpayer data, Internet Filing Application development, IFA. We will dive deep into how to build a client application. We'll cover this A2A method designed for internet-based transmission, and then we move on to the A2A, the application-to-application method, which is designed for high-volume transmission, including how to utilize IRS-provided toolkit, the software development kit, to integrate the web services. We will also focus on the assurance testing. It's a complex mechanism. It's a critical testing phase. We'll discuss how to obtain the ATS verification and successfully test your application in a non-production environment. So there are two types of systems, basically production and non-production. So we'll also discuss this, and at the end we'll briefly emphasize on some of the troubleshooting issues. So by the end of this seminar, you will not just understand the theory, you will understand how to structure XML according to IRS Schemas specifications and the business rules. You will also be able to implement secure authenticated transmission using web services, debug and handle acknowledgement files to determine if the return was accepted or rejected. So this landscape, particularly the MEF system, transmission, tax return composition, and testing, it's a complex landscape demanding high security and accuracy, but it's also one of the most critical applications of modern software engineering, where you get to put a lot of concepts which you learn specifically in the programming classes into the practice. So let's get started on learning how to build it right. The first question is, what is IRS MEF? The IRS MEF is a web-based, internet-based system for the electronic filing of various tax returns using the widely accepted extensible markup language, the XML. It replaced the older proprietary data transmission formats to provide a more efficient, secure, and accurate filing process. So there are many benefits. For example, it processes tax returns electronically, it supports the XML-based Schemas port, It leads to much faster processing. Transmissions are processed upon receipt and acknowledgements are returned in near real time, eliminating delays associated with the daily processing cycles. It leads to improved accuracy. The system using XML schemas and business rules to validate returns, identifying and providing explicit error conditions so software developers and filers can correct mistakes before the return is fully accepted. It's a secure transmission mechanism, and multiple forms could be supported. So basically it accepts a wide range of returns, including individual form 1040 and form 1120, 1120S for corporations, partnerships, form 1065, employment tax returns, 94X family, and exempt organizations, 990 returns among the other. So this figure shows the MEF and interface overview. So on the left you see these are the external clients, which include third-party transmitters, third-party transmitter registered apps, and state agency registered applications. So these are the main entities. Transmitter is an authorized e-file provider that sends electronic returns directly to the IRS MEF system. Then basically they need authorization, and there are other third-party applications which can directly interact using the A2A web services with the IRS MEF application system. Then there are states. For state level filing, state agencies act as external clients that retrieve state-bound data from the MEF system using A2A application. So you see that this is the HTTPS HTML, the third-party transmitter. They interact with IFA, the internet filing application. So there are two channels, actually two communication channels. You see that this first one on the top is the IFA channel, the internet filing application, where a browser-based manual upload for small volumes using HTTPS HTML protocol that you learned in the web programming classes. And then the advanced web services, which are also covered in some of our CS 300, 400 level courses. You see there is A2A, the web application service. It's an automated app to server connection using SOAP-based, HTTPS SOAP-based web services, preferred for high volume third-party transmitters, such as applications which are submitting, and then also the state agencies. And then on the right side you see there is an MEF application. So in summary, there are two channels, two interfaces which could be used by the external clients, including third-party transmitters, applications, and state agencies which interact with this system. This flow chart shows the interaction between the transmitter system and MEF on the left hand side here, and then between the MEF and with the state system on the right hand side. So once the transmitter sends the transmission to the MEF system, then step number one, the MEF saves each submission. MEF sends a MEF sends a receipt for each submission. MEF creates a status record or receipt of the submission. Those receipts are then sent back to the transmitter. Then once the submission is complete, in the next step, MEF processes submissions. IRS submissions are either accepted or rejected. State submissions are either denied or made available to the state, and accordingly MEF creates a status record. So in the second step, once the state system or state agency requests a submission using the retrieve new submission, MEF sends the submission to the state system. MEF creates a status record, and then the transmission received, that the submission has been received by the state system, is sent back. And accordingly in step 3.1, MEF creates a status record, and then the transmission acknowledgement is sent, and MEF saves that status acknowledgement, and status record is created. Now if the transmitter system wants to retrieve that submission, they can submission acknowledgement, they can send, MEF system can send acknowledgement, create a notification for state acknowledgement that the acknowledgement has been picked up. MEF creates a status record. So then that status record, accordingly in step 6, retrieve new status record which has been created. The status record is sent, and in step 7, get new acknowledgement notifications, and MEF sends the notification over there. So this is the overall process of the MEF, which both the transmitter systems, either using IFA or the A2A, application to application interface, can be used, and accordingly the same method could also be used by the state system as well. So next, let's look at the first. To use this system, you must complete an application to become an authorized e-file provider. That's a requirement. Then you also need to designate someone to become a system enroller to set up the A2A accounts and system details, because once you have successfully e-file, once you have successfully got your e-file application approved, then you also need to enroll your users. And these links are given where you can do those processes. You must acquire the IRS supported X509 certificates to use A2A strong authentication. There are only approved certificates which could be used for this. Next, all communication with MEF are done using the simple object access protocol. As you already know, this protocol is used in the MIME, in the email as well. So we will discuss today its structure as well, how the tax returns are structured for submission to the MEF system. So we'll discuss that in much more detail. So the steps so far that we have outlined in the previous slide, this slide basically shows that how to become a provider. You also need to enroll system, you need to get certificates. This is a broad overview, and we are going to discuss all these steps in much more detail today. And then these messages are sent over SSL. Return submissions are XML formats, files which are basically transmitted over the web services, and then PDF attachments are also supported. In today's seminar, we are also going to discuss this format as well, that how to format your tax return in XML format so that it could be accepted and processed by the IRS MEF system. Messages are comprised of 1 to 100 tax returns, the submission. Like in one message, there could be 100 tax returns or 100 submissions. Let's look at the pre-tax and registration process. The account creation, basically you need to get verified. Identity verification is required. Compliance and security issues are there. So at the end, you will get the IFIN and the ETIN numbers if the application has been successfully approved. So here is the process of obtaining those numbers. You basically go to the e-services online. We'll show you those slides next. But first, let's look at the purpose of IFIN and ETIN. IFIN, electronic filing identification number, identifies tax professional authorized to file returns, while ETIN identifies the transmitting software. Both are used for tax transmission. The application process we'll discuss next. These are the required numbers that you must have. Without those, you cannot access the IRS MEF system, and IRS basically provides those two numbers once you are approved. If you are not a tax professional, during the application for getting e-filer, ETIN number, or becoming IRS e-filer, if you are not CPA, attorney, or enrolled agent, then the fingerprinting process is also needed. Basically, all the licensed professionals I just mentioned, there is no fingerprinting requirement for those. And for the non-licensed tax professional, must complete the fingerprint as part of IRS suitability check. The suitability check also includes checking the background check, the crime compliance, the tax compliance, the crime records, credit checks, and so on. So all the due diligence process is done over there. Let's look at the process of how to get approved for e-file. Go to e-services page and select e-file providing services. So this is the e-page services on the IRS link and on the IRS website, and you will click on this link to start your e-file application. Again, the purpose of e-file application is to become the authorized e-file so that you can submit your returns. So as you go to the e-services page, enter the identification number for your firm, select your e-file provider options. Business that want to e-file for client should select EROs. There are multiple options. Enter the name, social security number, date of birth, email address, and citizenship status for each of the principal and responsible PROs and ROs. Enter the current professional formation for principal and responsible officials if an attorney, certified public accountant, or enroll agent, or officer of a publicly traded corporation, or bonded bank official. So in all these cases, there is no fingerprinting required. So at this step of the application, they need to enter that information. Each principal and RO who does not provide professional credentials must use the IRS authorized vendor for the fingerprinting. To obtain the link for schedule an electronic fingerprint appointment, they must access the e-file application summary page and use the scheduling link in terms of agreement signatures and personal information section. Each principal and RO must answer many personal questions and acknowledge reading the Privacy Act and Paper Reduction Act notice. By doing this, each principal and responsible officer declares under the plenty of perjury that the personal information is true, and then you submit the I-file application. So these are all the steps, the first required steps which are used to get approved for e-file application. So again, on this link, you will see that there is the e-file application, and once you are approved, then these two channels which we discussed previously could be accessed on the same page, either using the A2A automated enrollment, or could be accessed using the internet filing system as well. So those links are also given there, and even the ATS system, the assurance testing system, which we'll discuss at the end, is also part of the same page. So there are multiple provider options which you can select. For example, you could be ERO, begins the process of the electronic return submission. You could be intermediate service provider. So generally for the tax return preparers who want to file their own tax returns, they should be the ERO. Then intermediate service providers who accept the returns for onward submission, so that's the intermediate stage. There could be RO, software developer role is also there. Transmitter who basically sends the return, they may accept it from the EROs or the intermediate service providers and send it to the IRS. Then online providers are the large taxpayer could also be. So you need to select basically one of these roles. You can select multiple roles as well if it suits. For example, at the same time, you could be ERO, you could be a software developer, and you could be a transmitter as well. So multiple roles can be selected during the one application process. Here is a summary. You need to identify your corporation, identify your ROs, your office locations, designate contacts, provider options such as large taxpayer, the forms that you will need. So this is also, so far we have discussed the type, which type of person could apply, whether the fingerprinting will be required or not required, and the provider options. There is also the form selection option as well, that you need to decide which forms you will be filing. The transmission channel also need to be identified during so after all is provided, all information is correct, you will get verified for the e-file application. So here is the one screenshot which basically shows after the approval, that which roles have been accepted by IRS for your firm, like ERO, the electronic return originator for profit, and these forms, as I mentioned on the previous slide, so 1040, 1040NR, 1120, 990, 94X employment returns, so all are accepted for profit. And then software developer, these forms, this firm could form basically file these forms using the MEF system. For the transmitter, this firm has a transmitter role as well. Any questions so far? So far we have discussed how to apply for the ETIN and EFIN numbers, how to get approved for the file applications, what are the requirements, how the application will look like, and which roles are relevant, and which forms you need to select. Next, we are going to discuss the e-file schemas and business rules. So these schemas are the blueprints, basically, that define the structure of your tax return, the electronic tax return data. For example, if you open the 1040 form, you will see it's in a PDF format, and the schema will specify all the fields, acceptable data format, and business rules are then used to validate that. So business rules are the specific validation checks. You can think of it schema as a structure, as a template, and then the business rule as a validation point applied to that structure to ensure accuracy and compliance with the IRS requirement. Both are critical for software development, for transmission, for the EROs to compose these returns, and in order to have a MEF compliant softwares. So as I said, the XML schemas define the structure, business validation rules checks those. The XML format is used for all electronic submissions, for tax forms and their accompanying schedules, although PDF files could be supported as well. The schema exactly defines which data elements are required, what their name, tags are, their data types, numeric, alphanumeric, length, hierarchy within the tax return. So all this information is defined into the schema. And the software developers use these schemas. If your role is a software developer, you will use these schemas to program the software to output return data into the correct rigid XML format. Before a return is even checked for accuracy, it must be validated against the schema, the XST file. I will show you how to do that, ensure it's structurally sound. In the next slide, I will show you how to access those XML schemas. XML schemas are only provided to the approved e-filers. Next, the business rules. These are set of rules that go beyond the structure validation of the schema to verify logic and completeness of the data within a return. Every time the IRS made some changes to the schema and business rules, they generally send it to your mailbox. There is an SOR mailbox. I will show you on the next slide as well. So if there are minor changes, you can keep using your old schemas and business rules, but if there are major changes, you are required to basically use the new schemas and the business rules. So business rules ensure the data makes sense in the tax context, catching errors like missing information, mismatched data, or incorrect calculations are also caught at this stage. So it basically validates the transmitted file against these rules after passing the two initial schema validations. So basically you pass the schema, then you also need to pass the business rules. A rule failure results in a specific reject diagnosis message which prevents the return from being formally accepted. For example, if a tax return is a balance due return, the direct deposit withdrawal information must not be all 0. If a corporate return has a value on specific line indicating a capital gains, then the Schedule D must be attached. For example, the name line 1 of return cannot have leading or consecutive embedded spaces and must begin with an alpha character, the name field. So these are some of the examples. So two things, you need to structure it correctly, and you also need to pass the business rules. Schemas will guide you in the correct structure, rules will guide you to the for the validation against the IRS requirements. Here is how will you access those basically these are instruction to access those schemas and business rules. If you search basically instruction to access secure object repository mailbox in this repo, you will once you log on, you should be able to see those in your mailbox over there. All those schemas and business rules, forms, version number, and whether this message has been already read or not. Again, this is also accessible from the mailbox over there, and it remains there. It is very important to note that it remains there for 60 days, and after 60 days, if you have not retrieved the data, it will be purged. So once you get the message that there are no new schemas and business rules posted in your SOR mailbox, you should try to access it promptly. What's in the schema packages? The tax year 2025 schemas are available in the SOR. The recent one was sent in January. So there is a version and business rule. For example, it will look like this. The schema V1 changes to, for example, 1099 DA. The TY indicates the tax year, and again, these are not publicly available. These are only available in your SOR mailbox. So here, this slide also shows how the directive will look like. Basically, you see that there is the tax year version, the file, the 1120. The 1120 return, 1120 the C corporation return .xsd, it's a schema over there. The attachments, which type of schedules could be attached to it, those are also part of this. So this is one snapshot of the 1120 schema directory. So it will look like this. Similarly, for this shows the 1042S schema. So all the attached schedules, all the functions. So basically, this is the tiered hierarchy directory structure which can be used for the to access those schemas. And the schemas and business rules, the information that which versions are being used could be found on the IRS website. For example, this shows for the 1120 the C corporation return that it's 2025 version 5.0. Available date is November 25. ATS testing starts on December 7th. The production dates to be discussed, and so this gives you, for example, if you are working on individual returns, corporation returns, and you need to get this information, you can go to the IRS website and search. So this information, you can also subscribe for the new releases over there on the IRS website, which will give you information about those latest schema release and the business rules information updates. So that for the return composition, the XML resources are very important. So you need to learn XML, the XML, because the return, this is the language of the tax return. This is how the tax return is formatted. So XML SPI is a good source which you might have learned in your web programming class as well. It's an advanced tool, paid tool, and then there are open source variants available as well. So that's why I emphasize that before you start working with the schemas and business rules, you need to find any good open source tool which you can use to access those schemas and validate them with the style sheets. So let's look at the return composition. The returns are composed here in this format. It's a MIME multi-part content header. Then there is a SOAP envelope, SOAP header, SOAP body, and there is a MIME part boundary. There are attachments over there. and the multi-part. The standard header format it's used by the it's not proprietary, it's the standard SOAP format, and it has been used I think more than now for 23-24 years by the IRS. So they started using it in 2001 and 2, and they are still using this. So again, this is the overall format, and the structure will look like this. So you need to for each tax return submission, the zip file. There in the attachment there could be the overall. You need to basically form a MIME header and SOAP message which can contain multiple submissions. So this is the format. You need to follow that. For example, that zip file. This is a submission ID. The name of the zip file must be the submission ID, and then the name of the manifest file. It must be manifest.xml. And the name of the tax return which you are submitting, it should be in the manifest, the XML directory. The manifest should be in the manifest directory. So these two directories are required. So if you once you are creating your software application is creating this, they are required to follow this. So basically the overall composition like this in the SOAP header, and then each submission should be combined like this: the manifest file, the XML, the attachments. If there are multiple, for example, signature 8453 signature document, or other information in the PDF file that comes in the attachment folder. So three folder, the basic rule is the name must be the submission ID .zip, the manifest file, it's the in the manifest directory, and XML directory. So this slide basically shows the manifest. In the manifest file, these are the headers, so it indicates which form is being submitted, what IDs are there, and what's the submission ID, what's the ETIN, IFIN. All those numbers are provided in the in this manifest file. The submission file actually contains, like I showed you in the previous three directory structure, these actual submission files come from there. So there are style sheets available as well. So for example, if you are working with the XSD file for the XML, those style sheets could be downloaded for a different type of the tax forms. So basically those help. For example, if you are using XML Spy, it's generally sometimes hard to work purely with the XML data, and you are doing some testing and you need to see how the actual form look like. Then style sheets are very helpful, and those are available freely. I mean, you don't need to have the have the access of style sheets in SOR. Basically, you can access it publicly on the IRS website. This figure shows the how it will look like. For example, if you have the XSD file for a particular type in the XML notepad, so then if you click on the XSD output, you will see this 941 form for 2020. So basically this is generated are the GUI of that XML the schema. Once you have information in that schema, then you click on this link in the XML notepad application, then you should be able to see this file. So this is again another way of visually verifying that information. So the one simple tool that you can use is the XML notepad. Again, two types here. If you are entering information in the XML format, then you can use this. And then as on the previous slide, if you want to verify the visual information in a form format like a PDF form, then you need the style sheets and .xsd formats, and once you click on the output, it will match that information and show you on the output file. This slide shows the one file basically which shows the acknowledgement that this is the submission ID is this, IFIN is this, tax tier, and the TIN information is also given over there. And this format shows the submission, the MIME message that you will contain. So basically this should be the first one. So you have the manifest over there. The first comes the manifest. Once you have the manifest in the header, then you can have the attachments over there as well. So you can have multiple attachments, and then this is how the message is composed. So this is the how the manifest will look like. You can view it. Basically, it provides the IFA, all other related tax information which is required for communication with the system is generally given over here. That one sample submission file is on this slide. So again, these all could be accessed using the schema. So information, once you have this, you can produce this. For example, you can create one instance of a file and then start working on that, and can use the style sheets to view those. So, but again, to summarize, overall format is this. Over here, you need to follow this format. And each submission should be, there could be multiple submission in this format, and each submission should have this structure: manifest, the tax return itself, and any associated attachments. Any questions? Okay, so next, once you have composed this correctly, you have the submission. Now next is the transmission stage. How would you transmit this to the IRS? There are multiple methods. As I said, if you have got approval for the e-filing, then you can use the internet filing application, or you can use the A2A. The internet filing is much simpler, no programming required. You will just log on to the IFA using the link that I showed. Here, the IFA, once you click on this, you should be able to log on to the IFA. And then once you are successfully logged on, you select which firm you are using to submit that. ID.me logon is required, which you will obtain while you're getting your application approved for the IRS MeF system. Once you are into the system, you clicked on IFA. The IFA screen looked like this. Then there are two parts: the production or the test. You need to select your corresponding EIN for the submission, the correct EIN. For example, once you have the EIN over there, you can go ahead and submit it. So again, to summarize, the iFile is totally internet-based system. Once you are successfully able to log in using the ID.me, you just select it, log on, select the e-filing system, test or production system, submit file, the XML submission that you have, that I showed in the previous tax return composition process. And then once you are done, you can get a receipt, and the uploading process looks like this. So this is how you will see that file uploaded, virus check, preliminary validation has been done. So no programming required at all. Just your web server should be able to successfully generate that file, and accordingly you can just submit. So this is suitable. The IFA application is suitable for lower volume applications, but if you are using high volume or developing applications, then A2A, this is where the A2A toolkits get handy. The A2A toolkit has those libraries for in .NET and in Java. Those are pre-built code modules and source code that handle complex tasks, and service requests and session management, submission, login, acknowledgement. So all those complicated processes could be handled by using the MeF client SDK. And again, you need to send an email to MEF a mailbox to get that SDK. So it provides APIs in both .NET and Java. So those are there is one sample application as well there, and the documentation, installation process, configuration, communication with the MEF is also provided over there. But you need the strong security for that. So the digital certificates must be installed for the secure key management. You also need to obtain your public keys, which I will outline in the next. So first, let's look at the A2A architecture. So the A2A architecture, again the transmitter services, these are some of the functions like send submissions, get new acknowledgements, MSI services, log on. So these could be used by the trader partners, the transmitters, the state A2A applications, and then again the composition and the communication method is the same. So header or the message is basically used to communicate with the MEF system. So in the client SDK, it runs on the operating system. There is a runtime environment. Those libraries are there. For example, for the return processing, for web services framework, there is a security framework. Zip libraries are there for input validation, security utilities, service processes, which could be used in turn by the. So I'm just presenting it in a bottom-up view so that you know what's the underlying, and then on the top level, these APIs could be supporting APIs, and the service APIs could be used by the by either the transmitters developing software developers writing those applications or the state application. The transmitter system on the secure SSL session basically sends a sign using the SOAP logon message, which is received by the web portal, and the verification is done. So again, this is an overview of the whole process. So it uses the API client ID. For this purpose, I will show you how to get the client ID in a minute. But first, let's see the overview. The software developer will use the form instructions, schemas, and business to create XML files, and then the SDK will in turn help. You also need the specific certificates, the X509 certificates, which could be either obtained by Identrust or ORC. So basically, these are the two companies. So IRS only accepts the your public key base or the digital certificates, which are only issued by these companies. So it contains two methods to access the MEF system. It's a software development kit, documentation, and there is also the A2A client application. Client application is very similar. It's an old version, and I would recommend that instead of using the client application provided with the SDK or in the A2A toolkit, you should use the the IFA instead. Because IFA is more secure in a sense, but again that there are two options available over there. Then you also need to assign system enrollers who are basically responsible for creating A2A accounts. The A2A account creation is process which must be done because once you have passed the suitability, received your ETIN and IFIN, secured the certificates which I showed that only two companies provide that, they can create one or more A2A accounts. This is another required step. At least one A2A account must be created before the transmitter can use the A2A, and up to 100 accounts can be created. So here you will see that these before you can start using that, these are some of these service APIs that you must be good at. So for example, let me go back to that slide to show. So these are some of the APIs over here which you must test. Your web services must access those. So the recommended one are login, logout, send submission, get new acknowledgements, get acknowledgement by message ID, and get submission status. Again, these are the fundamental steps. These are the core steps which are required for successful submission of the tax returns. So these must be done. So A2A account creation, proper installation of the SDK, and then testing of the some of these functions in your software application. The X509 certificates we already talked about, those are required. the SSL certificates are also required, which must be installed correctly. And once you have these certificates, you can then start working on either in C Sharp, .NET, or in Java. For example, one command code will look like this. If you are doing it in Java, it's the format, it's exactly the complete documentation is provided. There are some initial starting applications are also provided in the toolkit. Again, I will just skip over these because these are the detailed programming with programming codes and examples which test some of those functions provided over here. So for this encoding, basically the list of server transmitter must master before IRS permit the transmitter to use the MEF production system. Without this, your application using the A2A kit, if you are not implementing this, then you won't be able to use the IRS MeF system. Then client ID. So basically, if you need to give access to some of your clients to use your submission systems, you then go to the same e-file services login using id.me, and then click on the API client ID application. So basically, this is again the client ID, like the A2A accounts. The client ID is only used for the A2A channel. So it uses the API client ID to authenticate and authorize access to the A2A services, whether IRS or the MEF. You can use your existing client ID if you already have one, or anyone submitting through the A2A must have the client ID. So what's client ID info? It's self-defined, status, provider type, and the JSON key. So these are the important fields that you must work on. The client ID info is given over there, and all the details you will see it in the e-services. The user IDs, for example, you can locate your user IDs here in this. For example, this is the system ID, what's the app name, this is the test, what's the status, and you need your certificate to get this client ID. So this interface shows how to get. You need to provide all this information to gain access to the system, and the certificates are also required. Basically, you upload your certificate, and then without the certificate, you won't be able to security certificate. You won't be able to get access to the system, and then the get status acknowledgement could also be provided over there. You can also generate the access tokens, which can be used to access these systems. Like the tokenization mechanism is still supported. Maybe they stop supporting it and implement the zero trust architecture, where with zero trust architecture, as you know, is based on just in time, just enough. So maybe every time you need to verify using the using your credentials or MFA methods. So it might be more pure as compared to. Then you can also, the next step is the API authorization. You can also use the API authorization management to get those clients authorized. For example, you can generate the client ID and then the production environment and get the authorization. So then this authorization could be provided to the third parties which are going to submit these returns on your behalf. So setting up A2A authorization will allow A2A processors to access IRS e-file services data on your behalf. Again, this is only used by the transmitters. So by granting these permission, you can think of these authorizations as the sub-delegations. And the process is very simple. Just go on the authorization management, select your client ID for which you are granting the sub-authorization or sub-delegation, Once you click on the grant access, it will generate that, and then you can provide it to the your clients who will be gaining access to the A2A your client ID system for on your behalf. So they can request client transcripts by using your A2A authorization. They can perform TIN matching requests. They can retrieve messages from your secure object repository. So you also need to be aware of the impact of granting access. If you choose to grant the software product access to your e-services data, you also agree to provide IRS upon request with the name and contact information of the software product. So if you use the services of a software product and they are reasonable grounds to suspect the software product is not following the required security practice and protecting taxpayer information from unauthorized disclosure, misuse, alteration, destruction, or otherwise promising to compromising the integrity of the data, IRS then has the right to suspend or terminate your account and refuse all current or future use of the e-services. So that's very important. Basically, you should only supply it to the clients which you trust, and you will be sure that they are following the proper IRS rules and all proper safeguards are in place. Next, a brief note on testing. Testing ensures the application comply with IRS standards, and in some cases, your applications, the A2A applications, cannot even interact with the IRS MEF systems without the testing. So, the purpose of testing is to ensure the transmitter use the correct format and meet the Internet Revenue IRS MEF electronic filing specifications. Returns have fewer validation and math errors. IRS can receive and process the electronic submissions. Filers understand or are familiar with the mechanics of electronic filing. Transmitter may retrieve responses. So basically all these are check marks that must be checked during the testing process before the actual transmission can start. So who must test? Software developers must complete a number of applicable scenarios. So these scenarios are also provided on the IRS website each year. For each type of form, they provide, for example, for 1120, there are 4 to 5 scenarios out there which you can use to test your system. Again, those are IRS provided, which have diversity of data. Basically, in a sense, all types of possible scenarios are encompassed into that to ensure successful testing. So software development must test. What is tested? These like major forms, the 1040 test, 1120 test, transmitters are issued in production status once the transmitter passes a one-time communication test. Again, that's another requirement of passing a one-time communication test before it could start. Software developers, applicants selected the provider option soft will also assign both a transmitter retain and software developer retain. Software developer retain is specifically used for the software development based like application tested. It's used exclusively to test software. The ETN is a 5-digit identification number provided by the e-help desk. So it's the ATS system or the testing system configuration is different from the production system. A tester should not expect the same response time when testing in the ATS environment versus the production environment. So assurance tester refers to the process of testing in which there is a window. Basically, that window opens in November. So if you are developing applications, you are required to test during that phase. So here is a summary. You must pass one-time communication test. The IRS ATS test for the tax year for that software tax package for those specific forms. So again, these are some of the instructions which are required both for IRS, like the information returns, and also for the other returns as well. So if you are using the 5 submissions must be completed for the transmitter control system. It's again for the information base. Each submission must include 2 recipients out of 10 records. If supporting a second transmission with some submission record is also needed as well. So once you have passed that, if there are some issues on your first, then you must contact them. If your submission is accepted, you need to provide this information. So in summary, there are many forms available for the testing. Again, those could be accessed. Let me show you those that site as well here. So here you can access those ATS information. Again, 1120. So this is for one form, but if you go on this site, you should be able to access those other excuse me, the other scenarios as well, which are used for the testing. So you should be able to download this from the IRS website and accordingly test it. The examples will be provided on the website publicly. It performs schema and business rules validation. The testing system does not support stress or load testing. Response times do not mirror the expected response time. The ATS will not accept live taxpayer data. Downstream systems will not process the submission. Always use your the issued transmission number and so on. So that was about the testing. So far in this seminar we have discussed what's the system, IRS MEF system, what's the architecture, how to get approved for the filing, what are the requirements, which roles, which forms you can access, software developer, ERO, transmitter, and so on. We also discuss how to compose the XML returns, which tools are used, what are the schemas, what are the style sheets to view those, what are the business rules to validate that. Then we also discuss 2 methods of submission. Those return using the IFA internet filing application, which is used for the low frequency returns, and then the A2A application system as well. Then we also discuss what are the client IDs, how to create access the A2A, what are the A2A enrollers, which accounts are required, which security certificates are required to get access to those systems. We also discuss the authorizations that you can sub-delegate and the assurance testing systems, what are the scenarios and how it differ with the actual production system. Then if you need the help, there's IRS automated chatbot available, which you can use to get some of your answers. The chatbot can be accessed from here. It is the escalation to live chat is also available. Chatbot is available from 24/7. The escalation time on Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can get help over there. The basic questions could be answered from the chatbot over here. And then protect your clients. Data security is very important because there is a liability issue. There are some guidelines over here. Learn to recognize the phishing emails, especially those pretending to be from the IRS. We have discussed some of this in our cybersecurity classes, that how to protect your email against the phishing and against the ransomware as well, because the ransomware is another big problem nowadays, where the attackers will gain access to your system by using either phish email by using the stolen credentials, and once they are into the system, they will use the symmetric encryption, the private key encryption, to encrypt your data. And then it becomes unusable, and then they will demand the ransomware. Even the cloud, syncing it cloud is not helpful, because if your data is encrypted at the local system, the encrypted copy will also sync to the the cloud as well, and sometimes they can also filtrate the data as well. So that's why it's very important. You need to be aware of install anti-malware, antivirus security, use strong and unique passwords, use multi-factor authentication, biometrics, encryption as well, encrypt all sensitive data, backup sensitive data to safe and secure external sources, wipe, clean and destroy old computers, and you should also continuously checking your e-file login to see how many returns have been with the file. With either weekly basis, you need to know that how many returns. So the following of these practices is very important. So that's it for today. I hope the seminar is useful. We still have some time. If there are some questions, we can take those questions. Otherwise, you can always shoot us an email if you need further clarification on any of these processes. Thank you. Bye.